Stop laughing. I'm serious. Don't laugh when you hear the number $50,000. Because if you think $50,000 isn't real money, you have already lost the game. The internet has fried your brain. You scroll Instagram and see 20-year-olds flexing rented Lamborghinis. You watch YouTubers buying million-dollar mansions. And somewhere along the way, your brain got rewired to believe that if you aren't worth 7 figures, you might as well be broke. But here is the truth the get-rich-quick gurus will never tell you. $50,000 is not the finish line. It is the starting block. It is the exact moment the rules of the game change. Not at $1 million. Not at 100,000. At 50,000. Everything shifts. The way you think. The way you sleep. The way you negotiate. The way you see opportunities. The way you handle emergencies. The way you look at your own future. Today I'm going to show you the math, the psychology, and the physical reality of what happens when you cross this specific threshold. This isn't about being rich. It's about being free. It's about waking up in the morning without that knot in your stomach. It's about looking at your boss and knowing, truly knowing, that you are there by choice, not necessity. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about the cold, hard math. Why 50,000? Why not 10? Why not 100? Most people live in what I call survival mode. $0 to $5,000. One paycheck away from disaster. One car breakdown, one medical bill, one missed payment, and your entire life spirals. You are standing on the edge of a cliff, and the wind is blowing hard. Then you have the getting serious bracket. 5 to 20,000. You have a buffer. You can survive a small storm. But a hurricane wipes you out completely. You're still anxious. You're still checking your bank account every morning with fear in your chest. But $50,000? This is the inflection point. This is where compound interest actually starts to look like a curve instead of a flat line. When you have $1,000 invested and earn 10%, that's $100. Nice but meaningless. When you have $10,000, that's $1,000. Starting to feel like something. But when you have $50,000, a 10% return gives you $5,000. That is a free vacation. That is your car insurance for the entire year, paid for by your money working while you sleep. But here's the real magic. At $50,000 in the S&P 500, you're generating roughly $300 to $400 per month in passive returns. That's your grocery bill. That's your phone, internet, and electricity combined, covered by your money, not your labor. Every single month. And then the sled effect kicks in. When you're at zero, saving $500 a month feels like pushing a boulder uphill. Every month is a grind. You see your friends spending, traveling, living, and you're eating rice and beans wondering if any of this is worth it. At $50,000, that same $500 gets a tailwind. The market adds $300 to $400 on top. You're now effectively saving $800 a month without changing a single behavior. The sled is sliding, and it's picking up speed. You stop asking, how do I survive? And start asking, how do I accelerate? You stop worrying about paying bills and start planning to build wealth. That shift, that specific mental shift, is why 50,000 matters more than your first million. Because without it, the million is just a fantasy. You cannot build a skyscraper without a foundation. This is your foundation. All right, the math makes sense on paper, but the real change happens inside your skull. Let's talk about the vibe shift. There is a reason you have been stressed out, and it is not because you are lazy. It is not because you are weak. It is biology. It is hardwired into your DNA. Your brain has a part called the amygdala. It controls your fight or flight response. When your bank account is low, your brain perceives that as a physical threat to your survival. It does not know the difference between a predator chasing you through a jungle and a landlord threatening to evict you. To your brain, it is exactly the same threat. Your body floods with cortisol. You are in a state of chronic emergency. And here is the cruel irony that nobody talks about. When you operate from desperation, you make desperate decisions. You take the first job offer even when it's terrible, because you need the money. You stay in toxic environments because you don't have the resources to leave. You are trapped, and the trap is invisible. It is made entirely of fear. At $50,000, something snaps. I call it the FU buffer. Not FU money to retire, F you money to breathe. You wake up and you realize, I could quit my job right now and survive for a year. Let that actually sink in for a second. When you have a full year of expenses covered, you stop being a slave to your boss. You stop being afraid to speak up in meetings. You stop being terrified to ask for a 20% raise, because you have the leverage now. You are not desperate. You are operating from power. And when you operate from power, everything changes. You take calculated risks instead of desperate gambles. You negotiate from strength instead of weakness. You attract better opportunities because you're not radiating the scent of desperation. And people can smell desperation. They exploit it every single time. When you're not desperate, you become dangerous. You become valuable. You become unstoppable. Now let's make this real. What does 50,000 actually look like on a Tuesday afternoon? First, the repair. You know that moment when your check engine light comes on? For most people, that is a crisis. Heart stops. Sweating starts. They're calculating which bill to skip, which family member to call, which credit card still has room. For you, it is a minor inconvenience. You schedule it. You pay it. You move on. The stress doesn't even register. You are living in a completely different universe, one where a car repair is an annoyance, not a catastrophe. Second, job leverage. Have you ever stayed in a toxic job because you needed the money? Of course you have. We all have. Sat through meetings with bosses who belittle you, colleagues who undermine you, work that slowly drains your soul, because you were too afraid to leave. At 50,000, you can walk. You can walk into your boss's office, hand in your resignation, and leave without a backup plan. And the remarkable thing? Once you're willing to walk, your boss treats you differently. They start respecting you. They offer more money, more responsibility, more freedom. You become valuable to the market the moment you stop needing the market. Your negotiating power becomes almost unfair. Third, your health. This is the one nobody wants to talk about, because it's not sexy. But stress kills. Poor sleep, weight gain, anxiety, depression, heart disease, shortened lifespan. There's research from the University of California showing a direct correlation between financial security and sleep quality. People with 6 months of expenses saved sleep measurably better. Their bodies produce less cortisol. Their immune systems function better. They get sick less often. They live longer. At 50,000, your baseline anxiety drops. You sleep better. You have more energy. You perform better. You earn more. You save more. It becomes a positive feedback loop. And the wildest part is your health is literally improving because of a number on a screen. That number is not just money. It is medicine. Fourth, opportunities. This is the one that excites me most. When you have $50,000, you start seeing opportunities that were completely invisible before. A business idea that needs $10,000 to launch. You can do it. A real estate deal that needs $20,000 down. You can do it. A career change that requires a temporary pay cut. You can absorb it. A chance to move to a new city, a new country, a completely new life. You can take it. The world stops being small and full of obstacles. It becomes vast and full of possibility. You stop being a spectator in your own life and become the protagonist. Now, and I need you to hear this next part very carefully. If you are approaching 50,000 or have just crossed it, you are entering the danger zone. The marketing industry is hunting you right now. You have been working hard, saving, sacrificing, and you feel like you deserve a reward. And you do deserve to celebrate. But you cannot afford a new BMW with $50,000. You are not rich. You are not broke. There is a massive difference. You are not at the finish line. You are at the starting line. This is exactly where the wealth gap happens. The middle class buys liabilities, cars, boats, designer clothes, things that depreciate, things that cost money to maintain, things that make them look wealthy while destroying the substance of their wealth. The wealthy buy assets, things that appreciate, things that generate income, things that pay them while they sleep. If you buy a $40,000 car with your $50,000 savings, you are back to zero. You traded your freedom for a depreciating asset. You reset the clock. And starting over the second time is psychologically 10 times harder than the first. Protect that 50,000 like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. If you invest it and don't touch it, 50,000 becomes 100,000 in roughly 7 years without adding a single additional dollar. Add 500 a month, and you get there in 5 years. Add 1,000 a month, and you get there in 3. The math works. The system works. But only if you don't sabotage yourself. Do not buy the status symbol. Buy the freedom. Buy the freedom, and you buy time. Buy the time, and you buy options. Buy the options, and you buy a life actually worth living. A car is just a car. A watch is just a watch. But freedom? Freedom is waking up when you want. Working on what you love. Spending time with people who matter. Traveling when you choose. Never having to say, I can't afford it. Freedom is the ultimate luxury. And it starts at $50,000. So if you are sitting at 0 right now, or worse, in debt, look at this number. Not a million. Not a billion. Not what someone else has. $50,000. Look at it. It is doable. It is achievable. It is within your reach right now. It is discipline and time. It is getting up an hour earlier. It is skipping takeout for the next 18 months. It is saying no to things that don't matter, so you can say yes to everything that does. Once you get the first 50,000, the next 50 is easier. The next 100 is easier still. The million after that becomes practically inevitable. It works exactly like compound interest. It starts so slowly you can barely feel it, and then it explodes into something you cannot believe you almost gave up on. The hardest part is the beginning. The hardest part is the first 50,000. That is the hill. That is the mountain. But once you summit it, the rest is downhill. The sled is sliding. The tailwind is at your back. You just have to get yourself to the starting line. If this video fired you up, do me one favor. Share it with someone who needs to hear this right now. One person in your life who is working hard and wondering if it's all worth it. Send them this video. It might be exactly what changes everything for them. And subscribe to Bro Invests, because every week we break down the real financial moves that actually change lives, in language that makes sense for real people with real goals. I'll see you in the next one. The race is long, but it is only with yourself. And you can absolutely win it.